Meet the man who created the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Captain America, and more. And find out why no one knows his name. Jack Kirby pours his quintessential 20th century life into his comics, only to make the fateful mistake that sends him into obscurity, while his characters become known to every person on Earth. Get inside the history of the man behind so many of your favorite characters, and discover that Jack was just as colorful and as complicated as any of his superheroes. King Kirby asks the question, what happens when an artist doesn't own his own legacy? Can he ever get it back? Come, see Sage Theater's presentation of King Kirby, April 15th through to April 23rd at Calgary's Pump House Theater. For tickets and showtimes, go to sagetheater.com.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake. I am your host, Jason Bishop, and today we are talking the Monolith Monsters. The Monolith Monsters was a monster movie, well, I guess a monster-less movie from 1957 during the time of a lot of sci-fi invasion and
I think you could call it a creature feature type of deal.
Yeah. I think we should get into this argument like right off the bat. We can get into this argument. It was from an idea by Jack Arnold, who initially wanted to direct this, but just didn't have the time. He's known for Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I do want you to scroll down on your IMDb's to a movie somewhere around 1970 something, and I don't even want to say it on air because it's such a horrible title, but it's Boss N-word, if you know what I mean. I'm like, really? Okay, so I don't know if I can forgive him that or not. I mean, that was part of maybe the blaxploitation era.
Was it a blaxploitation movie?
I guess. I'm assuming so. And it was co-written with Robert M. Fresco, and he was also one of the screenplay writers with Norman Jolie. And this was directed by John Sherwood, who also did a Creature from the Black Lagoon movie, one of the sequels, called Creature Walks Among Us. Yeah. Stars Grant Williams, and some people might remember him from The Incredible Shrinking Man, which I think was also a John Sherwood movie. I'm not sure.
And released the same year.
Yeah, it was the same year. Back then, they grinded them out pretty quickly. So,
and they used some of the same sets, too.
Yeah. And Lola Albright, who probably is most famously known for a lot of television, most one was Peter Gunn, 84 episodes of Peter Gunn, which I'm sure nobody remembers anymore. I don't.
I remember the theme song.
And a bunch of other TV guys I'm not going to get into. Those were the two principal actors in this movie. Yeah, 1957. It's a very interesting concept. I'm going to introduce my co-host for today, Trish Conklin. You've already heard her voice.
Yeah, hey everybody.
And returning champion, Sam Stepanenko.
Hello, everybody.
And everybody knows that Jeff's off with his new business. We have no idea when he's going to come back, but the chair is always open for him. So don't you guys worry. We may see Jeff in the chair of woe as a guest at some point in the near future. So,
well, to be fair, corporately, the dream is to be the Monolith Monster, to take over everything.
Oh wow, we're gonna just fill this episode with metaphors of what the fuck this thing is.
I know.
Actually, maybe we should get into that. What is this movie? Like,
it's a disaster film.
It is. Yeah. I think so too.
But there's also a creature feature aspect to it, considering the time frame and how they did it.
Yeah, well, like it is shopped as
like a thing from outer space.
Yeah, it is shopped as a 50s sci-fi monster movie.
Yeah, but the monster's very nebulous.
Yeah,
it's ecological. It's actually geological in reality.
Yes,
but it's not. It is for all intents and purposes a natural disaster. It's a propagating rock.
Well, I'm going to say an unnatural disaster.
Yeah, an unnatural disaster.
This is an asteroid that hits the Earth, and when it, I'm no geologist, but I'm pretty sure crystallization doesn't require a sprinkling of water. But it's just,
you don't water crystals like plants.
No, I'm like, this is a really disastrous chia pet, is what it is.
Yeah, the only way like anything gets bigger is like stalactites. And stalagmites when you have that dripping, that's the only thing that gets bigger.
Yeah, and so that's what it is.
Yes.
The remains of this crash asteroid, when those pieces get wet, they grow and crystallize into these much larger forms, and they'll fall over, shatter, and then you got a bunch of new pieces, and that's the basic gist of the Monolith Monster.
Like
and that's pretty much the movie too.
That really is the movie.
But like it replicates and replicates because the shards they get wet, then they have their own replication and they grow big, then they crash, then they shatter, then those shards come together and they replicate, and then they grow and grow and grow. And like we were talking before at the start of the thing, it was like the Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia with the brooms. You chop them all into little bits, and then you have many little brooms.
Also, they don't say it during the film, but don't feed them after midnight.
Yeah, they're gremlins. That's what they are. They're gremlins of rocks. Oh my! I think this is how gremlins came to be. Like the gremlins were probably some like tiny chimps that got infected from this meteor stuff, and that's how that happened.
Also, side effect: it does petrify people.
Yes.
Not overly explained in the film either. Some people it does, and some people it doesn't.
And how does it transmit to them was the question I had all with the movie. Is like,
me too.
Really cool, but how and why?
Yeah, how and why?
Yeah.
And why not everybody?
Now, I do have a theory. They never say this in the movie, but when these things get wet, these rocks get wet, they sizzle, and there's a gas that comes out of the crystals as they expand and propagate into the bigger forms. I'm going to assume that it's the gas and the particles that are coming from the rapid crystallization of these things. At least that's my theory, and I'm going to go with that. Oh. And I don't know why these scientists didn't bother. No point were they wearing masks.
No safety precautions whatsoever in this movie.
57.
Actually, I had an alternate theory. I would think equally as valid. Is the people who were infected were usually around the rocks that had broken. Right, so there's going to be dust particles, and they may have breathed in those dust particles from the shattering of the rock.
That plays into my remake later.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, the thing is, when there's people are handling these rocks all the time, but I think they're like basically they're inert, as you've just got a chunk that's been sitting for a while, and that's pretty much it.
That opening scene, the guy's driving in on the desert and put some water in his radiator. They're constantly putting these rocks next to water sources as the water's dripping from the radiator. Yeah. And let you know right away, this is the rub.
Don't water them.
Yeah, they don't waste any time at all letting you know what's going to happen.
Yeah. This is your gimmick. And he picks one up and hucks in the back of the car because I guess everybody in this town is a scientist and is in the right place at the right time.
Well, I don't know about everybody. There's just, it happened to be, it might be just like a place where they can have a lot of geological information. Like, it might be
what is the source of income of this town? What
I don't know. The salt mines.
The salt mines, yeah.
But, and if you have a mine, you need geologists.
Yeah.
Like, if you're mining or drilling anything, geologists will tell you where to drill, how, because they look at, like, the keys and the points around to find out where you can find what you're looking for.
Now, I'm no geologist. But even every time they started talking about geology stuff, looking through microscopes and stuff, it sounded like complete nonsense. And granted, I did look into crystallization because I thought the whole water thing was just ridiculous. And I didn't understand any of what I read either. So, like, my strengths are in biology and chemistry and not in geology. I was reading it, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm reading. So
that actually, this is something I wanted to mention about the movie, was how they tried to make it sound very science-y, especially at the beginning with the introduction by the narrator.
Yeah.
I love that. And he didn't even call the atmosphere. He said the layers of air around the Earth.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, this is so a 50s movie.
Let's just make up a lot of shit that sounds really smart.
Well, to be fair, this was the same time frame where they're like, hey, if a nuclear bomb goes off, get under your desk.
True.
Very, very true.
We're not rocking around a time where people had a lot of knowledge about everything that was going on.
But to be fair, at in that introduction, the science around meteors or the facts around the meteors was reasonably accurate, aside from his lack of using the word atmosphere.
Yeah, sometimes they just probably don't use the word atmosphere because it's just they didn't want to sound too hoity-toity.
Now, curious factoid, because there isn't a lot to read about this movie, and the movie's pretty short. It's only 77 minutes, but the special effects for this movie were done by Clifford Stein, whose career began with King Kong. And the meteor crash at the beginning of this movie was a special effect that was reused from an earlier movie from 1953. It came from outer space. So that crash is actually from a different movie. Wasn't even made for this movie.
Which is very typical of 50s movies. As I mentioned, they used sets from this movie in The Incredible Shrinking Man as well. Mm-hmm. The lab was the same lab.
Yeah. And they're trying to kind of put these out, and it's more cost effective to just reuse stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. And, it's done on the cheap, but I was actually pretty impressed with how the crystals grew and fell over. And
I was really impressed,
good.
Actually.
Even now, I'm not, it's miniatures and stuff, but even now, I'm not exactly sure how they pulled it off. The breaking and everything, it still looks pretty good.
It did.
This is long before CG and stuff.
Yeah.
So, they bounce in a way that they kind of look a bit foamy, but it's at the same time,
especially at the end,
really good.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to talk about yet, but at the end, it does definitely look like they're not rocks anymore.
Yeah, it's just some sort of crystalline type of deal. Which, I thought, I found it quite enjoyable.
Yeah, well, when they figured out how to make the crystals rise and fall over, they did wind up reusing the shots.
Oh, yeah.
They do a close-up of the same shot that we just saw, 5 minutes earlier or whatever. But there's a lot of attention to detail in there as well, even despite reusing scenes. I like the constant rumbling of these things as they grew, and it's always underlying in the movie. And before the podcast started, Trish and I were talking about a lot of these 50s movies were metaphors, analogous to something going on at the time. Most of the time, communism. I'm like, I don't see one in this one, but I'm also not from the 50s. I'm like, you could make an argument it's the slow creeping...
Red Menace.
Yeah, the Red Menace of communism. The slow creeping of communism. I think
not
they
readily
just,
apparent.
No, I don't think so. And when I
think it was just like you say, this guy had this idea. He wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a larger thematic thing about it. He just thought it is an interesting concept.
It was way more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. I was not really eager to be seeing this movie, but after I watched it, I'm like, wow, I kind of enjoyed that. That was kind of fun.
Yeah,
there's a neat kind of Outer Limits, Twilight Zone-y kind of idea in here somewhere. But I don't think there's a lot of high concept going on with the movie that was intended as a double feature with a movie called Love Slaves of the Amazon. So, that said, there's probably not a lot of deep meaning.
There's nothing wrong with things for just being for entertainment.
That's right.
Yes.
We wouldn't be here otherwise.
But this was
please do more of that.
It was quite entertaining, but a simple concept where you're like, this stuff grows and takes over. Just these crystals, not even anything plant-like, but you're trying to fight something that you can't legitimately fight. Like plants, they'd be we cut them down, we burn them, but these are crystals. I like the idea that it was something that you can't readily figure out how to get rid of.
And it's non-sentient. There's no malice intended at all.
No.
The whole movie. I think that's what, nowadays, not so much, but in the 50s, that's what would have made it scary. Is it something you can't control? You can't reason with it?
Nope.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's no real stopping it until whatever's propagating it stops. And we'll get to that, but I'm going to run...
To be fair, nowadays, not reasoning with people is pretty much what you're working at.
Yeah, that's very true.
Sure. Well, let's listen to this trailer, and there's going to be an opening bit of music before there's any kind of dialogue. And does anybody, before we run this trailer, does anybody know who did this music? I was very surprised. There's a bunch of different people who did it, but anybody? No?
Danny Elfman?
Yeah, he probably was a zygote or something at that point.
I don't know.
Herman Stein, Not expecting you to remember that. Know who that is. Irving Getzt. I don't know, whoever that is. And Henry Mancini.
Oh, how about that?
I know. And it is noticeable. Like, it is pretty grand music.
Nice, yeah.
It is. I did notice the music in the movie, but I didn't... And I've got to get in the habit of digging a little deeper on the music because, I mean, it gets talked about every podcast.
Well, and I stumbled upon it. It wasn't something I
unless you're looking for it, you're not going to find it.
Yeah, but I couldn't find a lot about the movie, so I was digging into other sources that I might not normally go to, and some of these little tidbits started popping up, and I'm like, wow, Henry Mancini, holy shit, that's some good street cred.
It must have been one of his early scores. I'm guessing like very early.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a Universal picture. This isn't from a small studio either. So.
No, because Universal was famous for these types of movies especially in the mid to late 50s, right?
Yeah. And hey, Universal, if anybody is listening to this podcast, you guys have collections of all your Universal Monsters movies, but I can't find anything of your 50s sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
Do something, man.
Something needs to happen.
There's some pretty cool shit. Okay, I'm going to run the trailer for this, and we'll be right back, and we'll really dig into this.
Chief, you gotta believe me. You're gonna think I'm blind.
Rocks, Joe? Powers of rock crashing down and then growing up again?
Yeah.
Perhaps a part of the process is the absorption of silica, taking it right out of whatever it comes into contact with, like
Human beings?
Just like Ben. Their bodies are turned to stone.
What was this amazing power that could turn people into stone? That could suddenly turn inanimate rocks, stones, monoliths, into growing, spreading, expanding monsters, threatening to engulf whole towns and cities, to bury all civilization under an immensity of weight beyond all calculation.
the natural slope of the valley floor is bringing them right down here. And once they break through to the other side of the mountains, there'll be no stopping them ever.
Look, all we're asking you to do is save her life.
I can't cope with something I don't even understand.
Ready. Hit it now!
That was Monolith Monsters from Universal Pictures in 1957. I do like, even though there's a lot of music in those older trailers, I like you guys, it's an audio podcast, you can't see the words flying by on the screen. Terrifying beyond belief and nonsense like that.
I love those.
They're fantastic.
Oh, no. Exciting. Dangerous.
I wish they did that in modern trailers, actually.
Yeah.
Right? It would be a lot more fun.
I think the last one I may have seen something like that because it was totally inspired by the 50s monster movies was Eight-Legged Freaks.
Oh, yeah, yep.
And actually the Grindhouse movies, the Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, they did that kind of thing as well.
As they should. Those were
I think there should be a number of movies where you should we should just redo the trailer. Like, pointless, unexciting, not worthy of watching. Like, I just want to do that for some of those. I get very angry.
We have a YouTube channel that we have nothing on.
Let's do that. Okay.
That's your
Trish's next project.
There you go.
See the people do pointless things that make no sense.
Yes. So let's get into that. So we talked about the scientist. He brings his rock back, and he's kind of poking and prodding and filling up his glass with water, and it's next to the sink and all that crazy stuff.
Yeah. So was it the water from the glass that made it go?
No, there was the windstorm.
Yeah, the windstorm. Late at night.
Water.
Yeah, after one of the newspaper man comes in and talks a bunch of nonsense stuff.
To be fair, when I listen to that, I'm like going, I get that guy's problem, because I had a cousin who worked for like rural Alberta newspapers, and that's the same problem. Like your biggest story is the 4-H thing that happened that weekend. That's all you're reporting on. You've got nothing.
Another cow walked across the road.
Yeah, and the ladies' auxiliary meetings and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a town of, they said 1,500 people. Like, it's just...
Yeah, that's about Claresholm. I'm from a town smaller than that, so yay.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of news there.
Yeah.
No.
So consequently, the first 15 minutes are kind of boring.
Yeah, it takes a while. They were really slow at getting it going.
Yeah.
I think they should have started a little quicker.
Well, they do try to do the establishing, as he fills his radiator and it drips on the rocks and he drives away, you see them sizzle a little bit. So you know there's something, the water's triggering something in them. We never see them grow right away.
Yeah.
The windstorm knocks, was it a beaker of water?
It was a beaker of water, yeah.
Yeah, beaker. I don't know why people keep beakers of water on the shelf.
See, that's what I was looking at. That's why I was confused, because I thought, since it was in a beaker, why would you put water in a beaker?
Distilled water, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. That would have been interesting if there's a difference between distilled water and...
Well, and that's just it. Was there anything in there that it could use to begin with? But...
Yeah. Water in various areas, basically you're looking to see if it's potable, but, you could have a bunch of other crap in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no logic there. It was a device.
Sure.
Pure and simple.
Right?
I think the little girl bit, I don't know. I would have taken that out.
I would have gone further.
Yeah. Well, because I think that kind of explains why it's so slow, is you have to go through two of these things happening. And that's it. You don't need both of them.
You do, though. Because
no, you don't.
You do, because when Ben dies, right, when he becomes turned to stone...
you kind of need to establish a line of incidents for them to start making connections.
True. Okay, then you can't complain by how slow it is.
Well, there's the balance, obviously, but Ginny's crucial to finding that cure for the petrification of humans because of these rocks, right? Because they use her for the cure. So she is a key point of the film.
Okay, but then you got to sit through some crap.
Yep. Well, the second star
speed it up.
Yeah, the second star, Lola Albright, who's Kathy Barrett in this movie, is not crucial, really. She's the teacher who brings these kids to the desert for a field trip. Literally, it's a trip in a field.
Yeah.
And they're told not to pick up anything that doesn't look normal desert things. Which brings me to this wonderful quote that the desert is full of things that don't belong. Okay.
Wait, who quoted that?
That was the reporter guy. While at the opening of the film, the two guys are talking about kind of where they are in the salt flats and whatever, and it leads to another line.
Oh, with the ocean receding?
And I'm going to paraphrase this one. The ocean thought the desert was a strange place to be, so it dried up and left.
Yeah.
Which is a great line.
It's a great line. Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed that line. And there are a lot of really good lines in that movie that, of course, I didn't write down or remember.
That was the only one that I found that I needed to talk about because it was so good.
And they reference that particular bit of dialogue at the end of the movie as well, right? I mean, it actually becomes a critical part of their solution to their problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that explains the where they are in the desert and why the salt flats are there to begin with. So there's a little bit of natural history happening in a rather entertaining piece of dialogue. So it's one of the clever pieces of dialogue in this film, because there are some bad ones too.
Oh yeah.
It's a 1950s movie. You'll get those usual line deliveries where you're like, was that the best one?
I hope you got better than that.
Oh no, Jed, you can't go. Oh, you're just not. It's not. You're kind of looking just a little bit more.
Were there rehearsals ever?
But I have to say, the professor in this and the lead in this, I don't remember thinking they did terrible at any point.
No, the lead is, and it was interesting because the lead isn't introduced until the first guy who's introduced is actually Phil Harvey, who plays Ben Gilbert, and he's the one who finds the rock, and in the ensuing windstorm, he goes and he hears it when it wakes him up, and he goes and closes the shutter and stuff. And as he's walking back, he notices something's happening with the rock, and then we cut away out of that scene, and later on they discover his petrified corpse in a doorway somewhere.
Just standing there.
Just standing there, and that was interesting. And that's when we're introduced to Grant Williams, who's Dave Miller in this movie. So,
and I could have sworn in the little shadow when they show by his face, I saw him blink.
Yeah, actually, there's Ginny. Her last name is Simpson. then there was Trevor Bardet, who's Professor Albert Flanders.
Yeah.
Like, we have Simpsons in Flanders.
I know. But not an Oscar.
I didn't catch that, but I'm not a Simpsons guy, so.
There had to be one.
Well, Simpson is just a common name.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
but Flanders, not so much. That's the odd one.
This is great. It makes me think, Groening, watch this movie.
Maybe. Well, to be fair, this in They Live, this is the movie that's on that television.
Yes,
so I'm pretty sure people have watched this movie.
Yes, anybody who wants to know why the fuck we're covering this, go back to our They Live podcast. We do talk about that and my fascination in discovering where this movie, because I'd seen little clips of this before and have been wanting to watch it for quite some time, and this podcast was kind of a catalyst for that. So.
Mm-hmm.
And a worthwhile one at that.
Yeah. I think so too. It's got some seeds to what I think would probably be a summer blockbuster.
It could be.
Maybe not a great one, but a fun one.
Oh, it would be enjoyable.
It would have to be better than any Transformers movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Or Battleship.
No, you know what? I'm gonna defend Battleship. Battleship is fun.
I haven't seen it yet.
I was given that by one of my customers. For some reason, he kept getting copies in the mail. So he had like 3 of them, and so he gave me one of the Blu-rays, and I watched it.
Why did he keep getting copies in the mail?
We'll not get into that. He's on some promo lists and whatever. But I watched this movie, and I'm like, fuck, this was fun. It's fun. I like it. It's fun. I'm going to keep defending that movie.
I found it about as fun as getting hit with a baseball bat.
Oh,
I have no opinion.
Loved it.
Aside from going back to my original statement about how some movies should just be for entertainment, and keep doing it. I mean,
right? Well, I have no problem with entertainment.
Yeah. But
I just really disagree with entertainment.
And that's just it. I mean, it's not every movie's for everybody.
Yeah.
And
nor should they be.
No. And like I said, loved Battleship. It's nonsense. It's complete nonsense, but it is awesome. It is a fun, bad movie.
There you go. And there's your plug for Battleship.
Yeah, there's my plug for Battleship, and this one as well, because it's a fun, bad movie.
This one is good.
It wasn't even that bad.
It was. I thought it was really well put together.
If you remember that it was made in the 50s, it is thoroughly enjoyable.
It does fit in there. I should have looked to see if it was something that Mystery Science Theater had covered or whatever, but
I don't know.
I honestly, I think as a Universal movie, it might have been too big for them to cover.
Well, not even that. I think because it fits together a little better than like most other movies, because you have this thing that's out there, and how they defeat it is already kind of set up and put in place earlier in the movie. Mm-hmm. They've got it. There's not a lot. There's some plot holes, but like in the concept of like it's a 1950s movie, there are not your usual 1950s movie plot holes.
Yeah. Well, it's such a clever idea. It's such a simple but clever idea. I'm actually surprised it hasn't been remade or hasn't, and has kind of fallen off out of people's memories, because there is something really different about this movie given what was coming out at the time.
It could be probably because people, it probably hasn't been remade, because unless there's lots of explosions, it just doesn't seem as exciting. I think people don't visualize it as exciting as it could be.
Well, I mean,
it could be
I could
a
totally
slow burn
see
thriller. It could be. There's some danger here. You just have to figure out how to proceed.
And I think that's the best part about discussing the remake for it, because we could make it more exciting.
Yeah.
Right. I have no problems there.
I agree. We need to trim down the introduction of what's happening somehow.
Yeah, because you don't get to the monoliths. Like I texted Jason partway through. I'm like, am I watching the right movie? Because I'm like...
She was just getting to it, too. It was funny. I'm like, no, you're almost there.
I was concerned. I'm like an hour in, and there's no monoliths.
And it's a 77-minute movie. So.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm sitting there going, oh, God, because I didn't want to waste any more time watching a movie that's not the right movie.
Yeah, because the threat keeps building higher, because they realize something's going on with these rocks, as the professor gets or the one dude gets petrified,
and then the girl gets petrified,
and then the girl
she starts to petrify.
The girl picks up a rock from their field trip, brings it home, and Mom won't let her bring it in, so she
cleans it off.
She starts washing it off in a basin, and then
which
Mom
is perfect child logic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's
dirty.
perfect child logic.
Yeah, don't bring the dirty rock in the house. So, and then Mom comes out and interrupts her. She just drops it in the water basin.
Yeah.
And the next time we get back to her house, it's partially destroyed.
Yep.
The parents are petrified, and she's slowly petrifying on her one arm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we go too much further, did anybody else find the actor or actress or young woman who played Ginny particularly creepy?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially when they find her and she's just kind of staring off, and I'm like, oh, does this zombify children? Oh no, it's not. They're not going there.
I know.
I thought they were,
but I just everything about her I found really creepy, and I'll be honest. I think I have to say I see that with most children in 50s movies. They tend to be a little creepy.
Yeah, like even when they're trying to be endearing, I'm still like, oh no. Like, yeah, 50s children were creepy.
Do you hear that, Mom and Dad?
Yeah, I know, but I think it's because the style of acting for a child actor is just that very monotone. It's either a whiny, oh, this is off, like that's the most emotion you get, and then they're whining, you hate them, or they're, low key and creepy. So really, those are your options that you've got for 50s
when
children.
we did that Santa Claus movie, there was some fucking creepy children in that one too.
Flying children.
Okay, so it wasn't just me. Good.
No,
she was a creepy kid.
I keep thinking of the Twilight Zone. There's a couple of those with like children in them, and I got creeped out more than once.
Yeah. So they rush.
Oh, the bad seed.
Oh, the bad seed. They rush that kid to a nearby town with the doctor. It wasn't in the same town.
No, it was their town.
They sent her to they went to the town first, and then they shipped her off to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because this town is not far from LA.
Yeah.
Which plays into my remake.
Yeah, and I yes.
I think Jay and I might have the same idea.
Well, I think we're on at least the same track for sure. Yeah, so they take her to Los Angeles, stick her in an iron lung, so that doesn't fail. And they're trying all sorts of different things to fight back the petrification.
Yeah.
Slow it down, at least. And I don't know. I mean, there's no point in going back through the Discovery. They're looking at rocks and the striations and all sorts of things. All sorts of geological gobbledygook. And I wrote down the word gobbledygook.
Well, it's mostly silicates. It's what they say they're made of.
Yeah.
It's made of just a bunch of silicates.
And then they also explain how it grows. The only thing they don't explain is why the water catalyzes it.
Yeah, they haven't been able to figure that out.
And I still think that's complete nonsense. And I'm trying to figure out a better way around that. But I might have something. But we'll get to that in the remake portion of the podcast. But so he's trying different things. That was Professor Flanders.
Yeah.
Or was that no? That was
the professor is the geologist.
That was Dr. Hendricks.
Dr. Hendricks,
played by Henry Jackson. I think he's the one who actually recommends the professor.
Yeah, because
Dave says no. I'm going to go see my old professor. He actually says I'm going to go see my
Because there's also a line like this. This has less of a chance than my students getting away with not handing in an assignment. He's like, yeah, I know about that. Like they have a history.
Yeah, they do have a history because he wanted somebody to help him find out what this rock was.
Yeah,
because he'd never seen anything like it before.
I don't know. Like geology is really hard. Like I don't know. I knew people who were doing like mineral engineering when I was in university, and like the geology just beyond me because you're looking at striations. You can show me two rocks. I think they're the same rock. Nope, two completely different bits of rock. Like there's so much to try and you're trying to figure out what something is just by looking at it.
They do something like that. They do something like that in the film where they pick up sand by one of these rocks and sand just a little further away, and they look slightly different.
One's soil and one's the stuff that's around the rocks.
Yeah, and all the silicate's been pulled from that sand apparently, and there's just that slightly darker tone in a black and white movie.
It works though because you can see it looked at first when I saw that I'm like, oh, all the moisture's gone from it, right? Because they hadn't explained that it was the silicates that were being absorbed, right? So I'm thinking, oh, there's no moisture in it. It sucked all the water out of it.
Yeah, that was until they explained it.
Yeah, because that was the catalyst that we were aware of, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just thought it was like they talk about the soil being dead. They're like, it just looks dead.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like they're constantly, even though they're making this connection through the petrification and the rocks and the fact that something's happening to make them multiply, because there's a lot more than expected found in these places.
Yeah.
When they find the petrified guy at the beginning of the movie, he had that one piece of rock, and when they find him, the lab's just littered with it. So...
And it's destroyed half the lab, too.
Yeah. Lot's gone on, and a lot of destructions happened because of it, but they don't
It looks like
know.
an explosion, but without an explosion.
Yeah, I think they actually say that.
Yeah, because they're like, there's no burns, so it can't be an explosion, but it sort of is.
Yeah, they say that about the farmhouse, I think, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting to see their thought processes and trying to put the puzzle together as they go along.
Yeah, like once they figure out that it's water and they see it like expand, then beyond that, they're trying to figure out, well, how do you make it not expand?
Yeah, which gets even really more crazy.
That was actually probably the most frustrating part of the film for me was watching them struggle with it.
Yeah, because and it's the doctor winds up fighting back the petrification, and Ginny's fine.
Yeah,
they make an artificial silicate. Somehow. Yeah,
well, they combine a bunch of different fluids. I didn't write them down.
Which they just injected, which doesn't seem right.
With the saline solution.
Yeah.
And then he gives that information back to them that this might be something they can use just in time for the rainstorm to start.
Yes.
Which is where you started texting me going, is there anything? Am I watching the right movie?
Yeah. Because I'm just like, I've not seen a single monolith. I'm getting very upset.
Yeah, I'm like, I sense what's going on here, because this is the Hobbit moment for her.
It is.
Where's my goddamn dragon?
I want my monolith.
Yeah, and the storm actually feeds into possibly a better catalyst. If there's lightning, there's electricity, which would make, I think, a far more logical catalyst for a chemical reaction.
Well, these days you could certainly make an ecological.
Well, not necessarily. Water can cause
too.
A lot of chemical reactions.
Acid rain, all sorts of pollutants in there.
Yeah,
See, I would probably go with pollutants, because there's lots of stuff that you can have that can occur, and it would be a pollutant that would maybe cause that. Because chemical reactions are through.
And hey, let's face it, there's nothing in the air of clear Los Angeles, is there?
No, nothing at all.
Oh my God, that's
right.
Nice.
Thank you.
I hadn't even thought of that.
So I'm like, I don't know if maybe water is a catalyst, but it's just a delivery system that was able to get into,
the pollution,
because it doesn't seem like a very solid crystal. Like it's a fairly fragile crystal.
It really is. I mean, it's an absorbent crystal as well, right?
But that's part of how it propagates.
And here's the thing about it too. They say, okay, water makes it go, but saline is what stops it.
Yeah, so they're basically saying salt water.
Right? Yeah, salt water. But I'm like going, well, okay, water makes it go, and then salt water makes it stop. Why doesn't just regular salt do anything? Because, like, it's just, why does it have to be salt water? Because I'm like, if you get a messed up sort of body of water, it's going to run into the ocean.
I guess that's how it sucks the salts into itself. And the salts are what's retarding its crystallization. I'm assuming, because I'm trying to use 50s logic in this.
I know.
Which wasn't particularly explained at all. But I think I see that's probably exactly what was supposed to be inferred, is that water increases its absorption rate of the silicates, and then it starts to grow. The salt inhibits that, and it needs the water as a medium to
get into it.
To start the absorption, or to maintain the absorption.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that works for me.
See, there we go. See, I didn't mind the struggle of trying to find out what works, because I'm kind of like, I like the idea of scientists who don't come up with something all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, I get frustrated when they're like, oh, I made a virus with this apple that will totally infect this alien spaceship's computer system. No, you don't know that. It's not even close. It's a different system. It's a different race. It's probably not going to work at all.
Yeah, is there a USB port?
The trial and error approach worked. I think they just made it
it's a little too long.
Yeah, they made it more painful than it needed to be.
You need a sense of urgency to it, but yeah, like I like the idea of trying to figure it out.
Oh, no, I didn't
I don't think we see that enough in movies.
Yeah, there's no real urgency until they realize there's a storm.
There's a storm coming, yeah.
And it takes them a little while to realize that there is a storm happening, that the rain's going outside. And they're like, oh shit, water does this, that's water, and there's a whole lot of rocks out in the desert. Oh crap.
There's a lot of driving in this movie too. Did you notice?
Oh yeah,
they're driving out to the desert. They're like multiple times. They drive to LA and back multiple times.
I didn't mind because all those old cars.
Yeah,
it was fun. Yeah,
those were really cool to see. So you know what? Yeah, there is a lot of that. But I kept looking at the car.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, absurdly, I kept noticing how close Dave parked the car in front of him. I don't know why.
Oh, when he was following the cop on the bike, who was when I think they were going to L.A. and
he was clearing the way.
He was clearing the way. He was so they could
get through traffic.
The motorcade essentially to keep the traffic, and they can go faster and get Ginny to the hospital. And so the cop parks, and then I thought that car was going to ram right into the back of that bike.
Yeah, exactly. And every time he parked, it was the same feeling. He's going to run right into the car in front of him.
Dave is just a fearless geologist, guys.
Apparently.
Oh, yeah.
He's the Indiana Jones of geologists.
He's also the jerk that will, park so close to your bumper, you're never getting out of that spot until he moves.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dick.
Hey, he's got monoliths to fight, guys. He's got stuff to do.
Yeah.
How dare you go down on Dave?
It was just an observation.
There's no defending bad parking. No defending bad parking.
That should be in our remake. He's just an excellent parker.
That's what he does. He whips it in a circle and slides into.
Oh, the transporter meets the Monolith Monsters. I'm
nice.
All up for that.
Very good. So this actually was probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie when it's raining and he calls the weatherman.
Oh, yeah. Did you recognize the weatherman?
I didn't, but I thought he was the narrator from the movie, but I don't know. His name was William Shallert, and he's just credited as the weatherman.
No, the narrator is different. They actually mentioned that on the Wikipedia page. Give me a moment here.
Okay, yeah, because
William Shallert, I recognized his face. He's been in a ton of things.
I didn't recognize him.
By Paul Frees.
Okay. So he's giving him this complicated weather forecast bullshit nonsense. And
I totally believe it too.
And I was buying it. It's all sounded very legit, and really, that's all Dave when's the rain fucking stopping? All right.
Well, and that's typical weatherman.
So he actually looks out the window and he's like, it should be gone by morning.
Yeah. But that's what you expect from weathermen, right? Is being completely non-committal.
We've got this front coming down here, which they'll meet up, and then you've got that Canadian low-pressure system coming through.
Oh, it sounded solely legit.
Yeah.
It totally did. And his waffling, not wanting to commit to when the rain was going to stop.
Yeah, right? And then he just looks out the window. It should be done by morning.
Yeah. Maybe it's a thing with weathermen. Like, people are like going, somebody's asking about something so boring. I better talk until they stop me.
Because I know my job is not exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's ever going to ask me about this ever.
Just the sheer frustration. Like, he's holding the phone to his buddy. He's like, listen to this bullshit. Like, just give me a time.
This guy's like, human contact. Listen about the weather. Listen to
me. I can't. He'll want to hang up.
What I do is a real job. Validate me.
Yeah, that's really the way it felt, actually.
It's nice to know nothing's changed about weathermen in all this time.
And apologies to all the weathermen out there who actually... No apologies.
I don't know. I really liked Dar McBool.
Oh, I love Dar. He was a really nice man.
You know a lot about very little.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know a lot about predicting shit. Like, they're just as good as tarot card readers. That's what that's the level I put them at.
Here's all the pieces, whether this all comes together or not, into what we think's going to happen. Yeah. Because nature's weird that way.
This is freaking, and this is Alberta. We have the most bipolar weather anybody's ever run into.
Yeah, very true.
If you could get anything right around here, you are like a weird freak. You're a wizard.
That's warm air that comes up from the south of the United States and meets the Canada pressures into that Chinook that crosses it. Never mind, I sound as bad as that guy.
I know. Well, crap, if you could like even just get like the weather in one portion of Calgary at the same time.
Oh, yeah, it could be snowing in southern Calgary and
sunny up here.
Sunny or vice versa. Yeah. Like, it's
literally
happens
shorts and t-shirts weather in one half of the city and jackets and boots weather.
Yeah, you guys could be suntanning and I'll be in a blizzard.
Yeah, and it's totally true, and it's happened multiple times in the city, and very recently.
Yeah. But enough about the weather.
Yeah.
Back to you, Dave.
We just spent a lot of time talking about the weather. We're just as bad as that weather guy.
I know, validate us! So, he finally gets his answer, and that's when things start to come together at the hospital as well. Mm-hmm. They're driving around, and he goes out to check out these stones, and they are growing to monolith size now, and they're going to propagate. They're going big until they crumble under their own weight, and then those pieces start growing up again and shattering, and because of the way the town is situated, it's basically working its way downhill towards the town through a valley, through a valley and the canyon walls.
Because it's taking the path of least resistance, so it wouldn't go up the sides of the valley. It'll just follow that pathway down to the town.
Right. Which
I like as a little note. As a little note, I like the idea of them actually kind of sticking with that type of crap, or not just coming up with random shit.
Right.
Yeah, there was logic. Like everything in the movie had a certain amount of logic. Like you're like, yeah, kind of believable.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, he goes and checks it out, and the rain has stopped, but they're still growing and falling, and that's what he makes the connection that the water's still in the soil.
Yeah. See, and I figured that right away. I'm like going, just because it stopped raining doesn't mean there's no water there. Like, I don't know. I grew up on a farm. That's just stuff you learn.
Because you stepped in mud too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, water just doesn't, it stopped raining. It isn't dry like immediately.
Yeah, so I don't know why they made the connection. Okay, the rain stopped, that should stop. But no, they're still going because they're still feeding on all the water.
Listen, Dave, I know you live in a desert, but that's no excuse.
Yeah.
And it's sand, which is full of silicates.
Yes.
And you're a geologist? You dumbass.
Damn it, Dave.
There's lots feeding these crystals.
Yep.
So it's still coming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we're already near the end of the movie. How about that?
Yeah, and, at this point they're starting to evacuate the town. They do it through the one operator that's working that day.
Yeah,
who's like, well, that's just me.
Well, I'm guessing it was like a weekend.
Yeah, and then she gets filled in on what's going on. Oh, okay, right away. And then the newspaper guy creates this.
A flyer.
One sheet flyer, and then gets every kid in town to deliver them.
Oh, and I wrote a note about that.
But there's no actual mass exodus from the town.
No, I
you see it a little bit, but nowhere near like a Walking Dead.
Well, yeah, because there's a cast of 8 people, and that would require them to hire more people.
But the whole time,
extras,
they're doing with the kids, and I'm like going, I don't know. As a child, I don't know how organized I would be with another group of children to make sure we got to everybody's house.
Yeah. But yeah, how long before they got distracted and then dropped them all in a dumpster?
Yeah. I don't have faith in those children. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in the 50s you would have, though.
Yeah, true.
Right? I mean, nowadays, absolutely, you're right.
Okay, so 50s kids are creepy but reliable.
Yeah. And
that's what we've come up with.
We've determined that at this point, that, yes, creepy but reliable.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to hear, but with the operator, she listens to what he has to say. She's like, oh my God. And then she starts making the phone calls. I wanted to hear the other side of the conversation. Like, what did he tell her? He's like, there's an evil alien, monolith crystal creature that's growing and reproducing all over and going to overrun the town. Is that what he said? I don't know what he said.
Yeah.
Because her freak out face, I'm like, I want to know what he said to her.
Because her freak out face was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was. She's like, oh, that sounds bad.
I'll do it right away. So I don't know. I think I just wish I want that bit of line of dialogue in the remake. I want to hear what happened.
Fair enough.
Yeah, well, now the operator do they have operators anymore?
You can call information. I don't know. I think you have to have somebody. There's people running stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and that raises a bit of a problem with the remake. Is if you use modern technology, there's going to be very challenging because it was so simple. It's like phone, radio, TV, and print.
Yeah, and radio and TV, those are free. You just get those.
Yeah, and they managed to cut out phone, radio, and TV, so there's only one method left.
Yeah.
Right. And in a small town like that, it was a feasible method.
Yeah, because I mean, once you take out that power source, the things just grew and destroyed that one line. That's all you needed.
Oh, for sure.
It's a simple way of doing it. So the small town thing, that sort of stands is to make it so how they could be isolated at any given point. Because they do kind of have this whole thing where they can't contact the outside world for a while.
Yeah, they lose the electricity, the phones, everything, radio, television.
Yeah, the only thing that worked was the police radio.
Yeah, the state troopers had to come
literally
in.
Wireless, right?
Yeah, it was, no, well, not Wi-Fi per se, but CB radios.
But this leads me to, like, when you're talking about, like, emergencies and getting the information from an emergency, like, I don't even know how they do that anymore. Because, like, I don't have cable. And if I'm not listening to the radio, I won't hear it. Like,
yeah, there's so many more people disconnecting now.
With the flood that happened in Calgary, apparently at some point they were talking about, like, evacuating the area I was in. I had no idea. I was sleeping at the time.
Oh, the fire department came and knocked on doors.
Oh, okay, because I had zero idea. They didn't come to my house. I didn't hear anything.
It says the person in the flood from the person who works for the city.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't, but I wouldn't have heard anything if I wasn't listening to the radio or I'm not plugged in. Like, how do they, besides knocking on doors?
Well, that's just it. I really only have my cell phone. Despite having television, I never turn it on anymore.
Yeah.
I'm a Netflix guy most of the time, so I'm not watching live television anymore, unless it forces its way through my weather app.
Yeah.
That's really the only way I'm going to know, or I see the city's Twitter posts.
Well,
I think that's where I saw my floods information was through Twitter.
Yep, and that's what I mean. Is there's so many different mediums now, right? So that's something that would have to be addressed in a remake. Is how do you notify that? Unless we go the way I'm going, and then it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, let's get back to the movie. They find out about the saline solution. They're trying all sorts of things with the chemicals they use to fight back the petrification. Nothing's really working until they go, oh, wait, maybe because it all was delivered
in a saline
solution, maybe it's the salt water. And sure enough, to try that works. And, they blow up the local dam, and that goes through the salt mines and
salinates it,
and Bob's your uncle. It hits the monoliths, and it stops them dead in their tracks.
Yeah.
And now they got this really cool wall blocking the canyon, so now they're probably isolated in this little bubble of a town. They have to blow them up just probably to get their asses out of town.
Yeah. Well, I just keep thinking, like, the stuff behind it. Like, if it rains again, they're screwed all over again. Like, once the rain comes back.
That was the disappointing end. Is like, okay, what next? I wanted to know the what next. How do you?
Well, yeah. Is this a permanent solution? Does it?
Oh, I think what you do is you try and clean up all of it and, like, just dump it in the ocean, which is nothing but salt water.
Yeah. Also playing into my thoughts about the remake.
Yeah, like, I mean, you just drop in, like, the Marianas Trench, the deepest point, salt water. What's it going to do? It's not going to wash up on shore. It's not going to be subject to currents. That's all I could think of.
Well, if you saw the way those rocks were floating in the thing there, they might wash up.
True, but I think that was just because it's a model.
Yeah. That was the only weak part in the special effects for me was when the water was washing through and some of those rocks were actually floating.
Yeah.
That was the only time I was at all disappointed in those special effects.
Foam, yeah. I mean, for 50s.
For 50s, it was still good.
Yeah, when those things were falling around, they were kind of bouncing. And, like, you could tell they were foam core kind of stuff, but
they were still so well done.
Yeah. I was pretty impressed with, especially when it was growing out of the sink, and I'm like, how the fuck did they do that?
Yeah, it was really impressive.
I mean, my only thing I can think of is that it was actually run backwards, and it was a bigger piece that they were melting from the bottom. And then they just rolled it backwards to make it look like it was growing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? At least the sink.
Well, all you need is
parts.
like just to get some fuzziness, like some baking soda and water, and like just
and just melt whatever it is. Like you probably should have made it out of sugar.
You don't even
whatever,
have to melt it. Just like baking soda and water, and like just pull it down and then do it reverse.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it could have been as simple as a hole in the sink. But
I'm positive it's a hole in the sink.
Yeah,
I know. I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, however it was done very convincingly.
I've seen that Wolverine movie, worse effects than this movie.
Which one?
The one that they sewed up Deadpool's mouth.
Oh. We're all past that now. Deadpool was awesome. So.
Oh no, the Deadpool movie they did was good, but that Wolverine movie was terrible effects wise.
I don't think anybody would argue about how bad Wolverine Origins is. So.
Oh, but the effects were just deplorably bad in a way that everybody should know and think about all the time.
This is how not to do it.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
this is what we should measure everything else by.
How many big budget movies
worst.
have we seen bad effects and bad CGI, and even The Hobbit has its bad moments. So
true, but that one was just noticeably
because it was consistent all the way through.
Yeah, consistently bad.
Well, let's head into our remake, because, I mean, there's not much more to it than this.
No.
They figure out a cure. There was another townsperson that was slowly petrifying as well that came in, and then they had to put her in an iron lung, but she was fairly inconsequential. It was just more to hammer the point home of how this was affecting people. It was an encroaching threat that could destroy the town, as well as the health threats of being around it.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think, but they sort of ditched it kind of partway through.
Well, they don't seem to fully commit to the health aspects in the petrification, because they don't take any precautions of once they realize that the rocks might have something to do with it. This should be in those full-on Devo suits, right?
Yeah, they loved those in the 50s too. I'm surprised they didn't use them.
Yeah, like full-on contamination suits, to protect themselves, because they don't know. They don't know what's causing it. They don't know anything about it. So they should have this thing completely in isolation. But they're hawking it in their pocket. And
walking around with their bare hands.
Yeah, bare hands. Practically rubbing it in open wounds. Like, come on. Like, I was surprised they weren't licking it.
Oh, if they licked it, that would be an interesting thing.
I know, right? Worse than a cold day in the park.
For sure. Yeah, you lick the monolith and stuff goes bad real fast.
Yeah.
But it also might explain, like, if it's a hot, sweaty day, if they were sweating, why it wouldn't do anything, because that's salt water coming out of your body.
And they are in the desert. I mean, we can pick apart all the little potholes all we want. I mean, but that was a pretty blatant.
Yeah, that one I couldn't quite grasp, because I think they should have committed more fully to that sort of threat as well.
Yeah, they didn't. It was almost an afterthought. Here's another side effect of these things, but they never fully commit to that plot point, and I think there's some real potential in that part of the
there could be some fun scenes as well because of that. But
for sure.
I almost wonder if they kind of sort of petered it out. It's like, well, we found a cure. Farmer's wife is cured. Yeah. Jimmy's cured. We don't need to talk about this anymore. Instead of having 50 out of 1,500 people, say half of them show up with this disease, for lack of a better way of putting it, right?
Well,
those contaminants.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what you need to do is have it, to maybe base it slightly in something realistic, is you can stop the infection, but people will have scars forever from it. That's what I kind of felt.
Permanently petrified hand, or
because there's a petrification that can happen to humans. Like, there's a real disease.
Yep. Oh yeah, we were looking that up for the podcast, and yeah, that's pretty disgusting.
Where rather than repairing tissue and muscle, it'll just make it bone. So you just become petrified.
Yeah, one of my clients at work he's taken medication that keeps it from happening, but I think he said it was happening to his kidneys or his liver.
It's harsh.
Which is, holy shit, really?
That's just a little frightening. It is totally bad.
Okay, so let's get into the remake. I think that, for me anyway, when I was approaching this film, I didn't really want to remake this film. I want to use the idea of the monolith and maybe even make it a pseudo-sequel while retconning this movie and my approach to it. So, we could call it the 57 incident or something. So it actually happened in this town.
Yeah.
But it's been swept under the rug or whatever at some point. I had a few different ideas about it, but I think we can all agree that essentially this is a disaster movie. We've seen a lot of those. We've seen volcano movies and earthquake movies, and most recently San Andreas last year. And so I used that as my model for my casting. I wasn't casting the characters from this movie. I was just kind of like, okay, here's kind of the model, the archetype of it. You've got, inevitably you probably have to have a family where there's a bit of conflict between the mom and the dad, and there's some kid at some point, and a parental unit or
do you have a dog? It's important you have a dog.
I don't have a dog, but because we've been doing Oscar movies for 4 weeks in a row, as Sam pointed out, maybe we should have a dog named Oscar. I don't know.
There we go.
Although I don't think there's any Oscar representation in Flash Gordon.
No.
But yeah, maybe there's a dog. I don't know. So I don't know about your guys' casting, but I was kind of thinking that action movie, survival movie when I was going into mine. So
when I was thinking about my remake, I was again going disaster film. I was looking at it as an actual remake, but bigger, but much bigger.
Oh, for sure.
I actually see that town getting destroyed before they discover what's going on. Like that.
Yeah,
right?
I would too.
I see hundreds of these petrified people in the streets.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be an epic disaster.
See, and I wanted it like to be where they end up isolated and they can't get the word out to anybody. Like they're stuck trying to battle this.
Yeah, I could see that. That could be fun too. And then I saw these monoliths moving towards a major center like LA or San Diego or somewhere like that, where it's adjacent to the desert, moving towards that salt water, which then leads into a different solution, but a solution nonetheless.
Well, the way they were talking about it, the science behind these things, absorbing the silicates, it really felt like it was something designed. Like it was boggling their minds that why would this even work? And I started toying with the idea of like, what if this was a passive aggressive invasion?
Yeah,
right,
just taking over.
form of terraforming. Mm-hmm. You know, well, why would they come down with lasers and all this shit? Well, they just throw down some rocks that cause the havoc, wipe out the inhabitants, and it's theirs.
It's like the equivalent of like putting sod on a lawn, making it what you want.
Yeah, so I was kind of toying with that as well. I mean, if there's an alien, you could show it near the end or whatever. But
there's a spaceship made out of the same material as the monoliths.
Yeah, something like that, right? So now you don't have like one rock falling. You have them falling in key spots around the world. Like I kept picturing like, okay, here's a shot of, maybe one of the first attempts in all these jagged crystals consuming like a rainforest. Mm-hmm. And then, I want these things massive. And so when you see them in cities, like
they're
major
as tall as the skyscrapers.
Yeah, they're
like
taller than the skyscrapers.
Yeah, I like that, but I still kind of inclined to go with the lack of intent. There's the fact that there's no maliciousness. This is just something that happens. Mm-hmm. But I like that way too. I think the idea that it could be engineered is intriguing.
Yeah, and that could lead into a whole different movie. But
yeah, you could have it engineered, or I don't know. I had something where it was like just latent. Mm-hmm. It was underneath the Earth's surface for a long period of time and didn't have a lot of access. It was just somewhere there wasn't a lot of water.
I mean, the fact that maybe it's not manufactured and maybe it's something. Okay, it's something that we haven't discovered yet from space, still that asteroid, but it mixes with whatever we've done to our planet as an ecological metaphor. Mm-hmm. It's not specifically the water, but what we're doing to polluting the water or the air or whatever. I mean, there's certainly opportunity to take advantage of things like fracking and just natural pollutants that we put in
then I have
the
to change my casting to Leonardo DiCaprio, though.
Why? I don't remember ever needing a bear in this, but
environmental Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes, he's talking.
You have to be careful about what you do to the planet, but you fly private jets everywhere.
Yeah.
That type of environmental.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
long enough to get him crushed.
Yes, no, I was mocking Leonardo's climate change rhetoric.
I don't mind if you talk about it, but if you're spending all your time wasting fuel, I don't think you can even say anything.
You don't have a voice in the conversation.
Yeah, and don't mistake Chinooks for climate change.
Yeah, Chinooks are. Yeah, we just had a really warm year. For those of you guys who are wondering what the fuck we're talking about, they shot a good portion of the Revenant here and had to move production because we had an unusually mild winter, and we just had long Chinooks, and we were one of two cities in the world that get them.
Yeah,
and most people don't understand what they are. I'm always baffled when I talk to somebody not from Calgary and they don't know what a Chinook is. I mean, the clouds look weird when a Chinook rolls through. You get this.
The wind picks up.
One side of the skyline is all cloud, and then the other side is clear, and there's a clear line of cloud.
It's a big arc, like it's like a dome over the city.
It's the Chinook Arch.
It's called the Chinook Arch.
And the wind coming through.
And it's kind of creepy for people who've never seen that before.
And it'll you can start off with a very, very cold morning. By afternoon, everything's gone.
Oh yeah, well, I mean I've literally, I think the most intense Chinook we had, I think going into the Chinook we were around minus 20 Celsius, and by midday we were plus 20.
Plus 20, yeah.
Plus 20. We'd changed 40 degrees in the course of a day.
I think it's gone the other way too, once or twice.
Oh yeah, we've gone the other way as well, as the Chinooks leave and then the cold front comes in.
Yeah.
So
we
just had a very unusually warm winter. It was been a very mild winter for us. In fact, probably the mildest I've ever seen.
See, and the concern isn't about the Chinook. For me, the concern is how dry it's been.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not contesting that climate change is happening, but that's not the entirety of reason. If you're filming in Alberta, you should be aware of this going in, because that's always a possibility that you're going to get a Chinook and it's going to fuck up your snow.
Yeah,
Yep.
and if you're somebody looking for locations, frickin' talk to the local people about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Don't just assume.
Yeah.
Yep.
Talk to the weatherman.
Yes.
Yeah, phone up the guy in this movie and ask him what's going to happen.
Yeah. So, what was your casting?
Okay, my casting. So, I kind of went in with, rugged hero type, token hero type, mom, scientist, blah, blah, blah. So, I wanted an action lead, but I was trying
to stay away from our usual.
Yeah, because Sam's taking us to task, and I'm like, well, who do I think deserves? He's got to be old enough to have a kid, because I like that dynamic of trying to rescue your and stuff, and then you have that maybe broken romance with the wife, but trying to fix things. I mean, it's trope, and it exists in almost every one of these disaster movies, so that was kind of what I was building from. And I went with Josh Holloway from Lost and
nice.
Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I can buy him in that role. Just the small part we saw him in Ghost Protocol, I'm like, hey, he's like, I could buy him as an action guy. I loved him in Lost. I'd like to see him in a bigger lead role. Like, I think he can do it. And that, I'm like, well, let's keep that connection, and I'm going to make his wife, who's also going to be the scientist who comes up with more of the solutions, because I wanted a strong female lead who can deliver the information,
the scientific
and
jargon.
That's Elizabeth Mitchell, who again was from Lost. Most of you, if you're trying to dig up stuff, she was in the most recent Purge movie called Election Year. She's the lead in that. I think she's the president in that.
The Purge. I have a note about that, but I'm not going to say.
And she needed, I think she needed at least another fun scientist guy in there as well. We need some more supporting cast in there, and so I put Mekhi Phifer in there because he can.
He's in my cast too.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he's funny, but I think he can pull off the smart guy as well.
See, for funny and smart guy, I had a different guy,
and do intense.
But in the same,
he could do some intense, crazy. I mean, Dawn of the Dead, ER, 8 Mile, Insurgent. Like, he's played a nice variety of roles that we can pretty much do whatever we want with him, and he'll be great in it.
And that's why I picked him too.
See, but I kind of went along the same vein, but a different actor.
See, that's interesting, especially considering how open this movie is.
Yeah.
That we both wound up with Mekhi Phifer. And then for the daughter, I wanted somebody not who can play 14, but probably actually is, just getting into their teens. And I picked Victoria Lee. She's from Sinister, the Nick Bridge of Spies. And then I went with the scary father type. The one that Josh Holloway might be a little leery of.
By.
But I kind of was thinking maybe CDC or military type, because that's going to play into this a bit. And I probably went with the scariest old dude I could find, and that was Tobin Bell.
Nice.
Yep.
Right?
That's ticking the box of scary, all right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think he could, box of scary and very intimidating. I think he could still do that military commander type rather well.
Nice. That's a good choice.
So, and because inevitably presidents get involved, Kurt Russell. Just because it's Kurt Russell.
It's Kurt's turn to be president.
He's getting of a certain age, and I'm like, you know what? He'd be cool. He'd be a cool president.
He would be a very cool president.
He'd be like a cool president, like the one they had in Independence Day. He'd be Bill Pullman cool.
Bill Pullman, nice.
But I didn't want to go because they got their own thing going there. I don't know. We'll have to watch the new Independence Day to see if he got impeached or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that was kind of where I was going with those. That's my primary cast. I mean, there's lots more room for their supporting cast or whatever. But I think you guys can see my structure based on other disaster films and how that might play out. Talked about the possible terraforming, environmental, social commentary out of this. One of the things I want with the petrification is I want it to be very volatile and violent. You know, as you said, they're breaking and absorbing particles and bringing them. I mean, we're mainly water, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when they're petrified, I want like little jets of those crystals, like pushing themselves out of the person's body. Like, you know, let's you want to make them threatening? That's scary.
And lots of them, not just the 3 that we saw.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And fallen over and breaking because they just like the monoliths do.
Oh, yeah. And then they become
part
of
like
the
I
want
to see part of it like where a hand breaks off, like a finger or something just fractures.
Just pushes it out and there's absolutely. It should work the same way as this person. All the moisture's getting taken out of their body and the crystals are taking over. It just, the biological matter
I want to see a violent amputation.
Out. Yep. For sure.
We're so evil.
But that's the intensity of what these movies are these days,
When
right?
I first saw like the little girl when her hand is going, I'm like going, I thought the Blob movie where they're like going, well, they're going to amputate it, right?
Oh, yeah, I thought so too. I'm like, ooh, this is brave for the 50s. That never happened.
No, but that's what makes more sense. Like at that time, if you can't fix it right away, you're like, well, you just have to keep the infection from spreading, so we have to take it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, before getting any more plot elements, Sam, you got some more cast to add to this?
I don't have a cast to add to it, but because I went straight up remake because I'm still fairly new to this, so I'm learning some tricks.
That's okay. You know, a lot of the times we do try to stay within, but I feel like the same idea will work in a grander scale with new characters. You know.
Well, I think we had the same idea, like it's grander scale, but I sort of stayed true to the plot of the first one. So, and I cast, as I said, the exact same characters. So for Dave Williams, I wanted the type of actor who could play a smart yet courageous kind of guy, sort of like the classic 50s Hanson too. So I went with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Nice. Okay. He came across my list once too. I didn't go with him, but yeah.
For Kathy Barrett, who does need a bigger role, maybe.
Oh, she will.
Empowering.
Yeah.
And that's why I went with Yvonne Strahovski from Chuck.
Okay.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Right? And again, I because I was watching it from a 50s perspective. Again, she could play that 50s ingenue very well. Mm-hmm. She's got that look and the talent to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
For Martin Cochran, who is the reporter, I went with Terrence Howard.
Nice.
I thought he'd do really well as sort of the grizzled reporter guy. Mm-hmm. For Ben, who has a small role, but I wanted to, he struck me as kind of the outgoing, funny guy. So I went a little weird, maybe not that weird, but a little different. I went with Chris O'Dowd, the actor from IT Crowd.
IT Crowd, he's great. I love Chris O'Dowd.
And I liked him, and he can play semi-serious quite well. He was great in Bridesmaids.
Yes.
So yeah, I thought he'd be a lot of fun. For the police chief, that's where I went with Mekhi Phifer. I thought, again, good cop.
Sure. For
the Dr. Hendricks, which is the more experienced doctor, this is I'll throw it to Jeff and the rest of the guys here. I went Tony Todd.
Oh, nice.
I wanted a more experienced actor to play the doctor who finds the cure.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I'm like, who would be fun? Like, you know what? We can't have a podcast without mentioning Tony. So.
Nice. We love Tony on this podcast.
For Dr. Reynolds, I went with Oscar Isaac.
Okay.
I'm going for a culturally diverse cast as well.
Oh, Oscar. Okay, now we can't. Our Oscar.
Oh, there we go. I did it. I'm sorry.
You did it.
I just did it.
I totally did it.
You brought it up, and then you did it.
I know. I didn't do it on purpose, though. And then I did cast Ginny as well. I am not really familiar with this young lady's work, but I did a lot of research. She's got a huge body of work. She has the look, again. I got hung up on the looks a little bit for the child actor, but I went with an actress named Caitlin Carmichael.
Okay.
She looks that 50s big-eyed look. And she's the right age. And like I said, she's got a huge body of work. She's probably got about 30 credits on her.
Would there be anything we would have seen?
Quite a bit, actually. And I think, no, I didn't write down. I looked it up and I forgot what it was. But she's done things like CSI, a lot of TV stuff. And she's played in the serious movies. She's not just kids kids movies and kids roles because she's done that too. Like she's right across the board in terms of her acting, and I'm definitely going to look to see how good she actually is.
Nice.
But if she's getting cast that often, she must have some talent, right? And that's why I went with her. Because like most people, I don't really know a lot of child actors, especially in that age range right now.
And you've got a limited time frame.
Yeah. I dug deep on this one to do mine. So.
Yeah. Now, I cast the narrator as well, and I thought it would be fun to have an actual scientist do the narration. So I went with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes!
Nice.
As soon as you said scientist, I'm like, please let it be Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes, so I went with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I actually picked a directors plural.
Because it sounds like an opening to Cosmos. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it would be a lot of fun to keep that in there.
Yeah.
Nice. That'd be so good.
And then I did go with the directors as well. I went with Peter and Michael Spierig. They directed Daybreakers and Predestination, and I'm like,
oh, very nice.
I think that they could do some really interesting things with.
I totally forgot to get a director for this one.
Yeah, I didn't.
But the way my structure is, it'd probably be an Emmerich. So
yeah, and you know what the funny thing is, I came across them because I was looking at disaster films.
Yeah, but I didn't want to use them, so because they're busy making their own disaster movies.
Yeah, but they've got the small body of work, and I'm thinking, but I've liked the two films that they have done, and I'm like, yeah, I like those guys. I think they could do something really fun with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a good cast, and I think different tacks and the same idea though. For sure.
Yeah, huge disaster threatening major centers.
Yeah,
lots of destruction and chaos. Like I said, I see the initial town under those stones.
I kind of want like sort of an act structure though. I want like the first act to be a small town and how that's destroyed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want that to happen at the beginning, and then they're isolated and like how it's able to spread.
Yeah. I actually, in my head, I'm like, I want a bit of a bummer ending. Like, you know, these always end in stopping, whatever. And okay, fine, but I'd like them to find out the solution too late.
Mm.
When it reaches the ocean, that's when they find out the solution. It's destroyed this major center. It hits the salt water, and then it stops.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it doesn't get much more bummer ending than that. It's like everything's gone.
Yeah.
And now there we go.
Oh, then you do the pan out, and you see all the spikiness over, not just cities but continents. Like you can see the crystals have taken over the land masses.
Yeah. But I'm kind of wondering, like, I need something at the end where they're trying to, like, I know it's a bummer ending, but they'd have to think about, like, okay, how do we contain this? Because it's going to rain. Or no, just have storm clouds gathering in the last scene.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Make a total bummer ending.
It just went from really fucking bad to worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you have the sequel. No, we don't need a sequel.
Well, that's where if you decided, I kind of like just it being a thing rather than a passive-aggressive invasion. But that's a kind of neat angle, too, that I'm like, well, you could do that, and then, you could have your sequel that has nothing to do with the monoliths anymore, and it's more about what comes next.
See, I could have it what comes next, but I'd also have it where you have your usual trope with a lot of these movies with something like this, where you'll have a government agency going, this would be great if we could use it on our enemies, and it can be contained simply by the ocean.
I totally agree, because it was that was something I was thinking about. I'm like, well, this is easily a weapon that can be utilized.
Yeah, that's often an option with like some. There's always some military guys like, this is a weapon.
That's why I like.
But they never think about how.
Yeah, that's why where Tobin Bell comes in. Like, I think he's very aware of what this is.
Yeah.
And they have samples of it, but they're not quite sure how to control it.
Yeah.
And from the 57 incident. In fact, I would actually have Lola Albright in the film. Even though she is still around, she is 90 years old.
Oh, nice!
So give her one moment.
Yeah,
for sure.
That would be nice, because we like to do that. We like to have.
Well, so is the Weatherman guy. He's still alive too.
Yeah,
have him in there. Yeah. He's so good.
Yeah, but one thing that I just
had a thought.
Yeah, I just had one too. Let me.
You go ahead.
One thing that we could also be discussed in our bummer ending is, maybe they stop it, but what has the removal of all the silicates from everything?
Oh yeah, like
what's done to the environment.
That's what they're saying. Like it was dead soil. Like a bunch of the stuff has been removed.
Right? Yeah. So you know what? You beat it, but you've got this whole swath of land that's never going to be useful again.
You've salted the earth. You
literally salted the earth. So that's
another
feed into that bummer ending, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I know we beat it, but you know what? The entire West Coast, from Nevada and Arizona all the way to California and all the way up the coast to Oregon.
Yeah. Say goodbye to your oranges.
Yeah.
Right.
And but I was thinking about another thing too, like we're talking about, like has to be like saline solution that kind of stops them. And I was thinking like another character like that would probably work well in your disaster movie scenario is like somebody who's like a fire jumper, like in those planes and helicopters that like throw water and crap onto like forest fires. They bring them in.
Well, that's why I was thinking Josh Holloway could be something like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, the rugged hero type. I don't want him to be the scientist person. Like, I think there's two heroes in this movie.
Yeah.
The person that's kind of trying to help his family and save people, and then the person who's coming up with the science that'll help a massive amount of people.
Yeah.
You know.
I had, I tell you?
Lots of running from things falling.
I've got, I didn't kind of go with mostly the same stuff, but I did have, when you're talking about like Omar Epps, I went with Damon Wayans Jr. He was my funny guy who I think could do an action movie.
And he was actually one of the guys I was considering as well.
Yeah, I think he's funny. I put Eliza Coupe as his main squeeze because I just miss her, and I loved Happy Endings, the TV series, and I just love their couple. But for my stunt casting for my professor, I went with Michael J. Fox.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I think it would be just an interesting thing to like have this like kind of old decrepit professor. It would be cool. I just want him in a movie.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome.
Especially considering he has started acting again in smaller roles. So.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you
like I could have him as an old retired professor, but he knows something about this type of thing. Like he's just so specialized.
The illness as part of the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I would totally buy that.
I would totally buy that.
Me, Michael J. Fox. Okay, and that's pretty much what I did. I think I had James Marsden as the police guy because I thought he's good enough for like a side character.
Yeah, totally.
He's sort of your 50s looking guy, but yeah, he could be. I can see him being kind of a little bit of a dick at first and not believing what's happening, but then getting on board with it.
Right.
So,
like kind of like the sheriff in the movie in the original. He
sure.
was very skeptical about everything.
Yeah, well, he doesn't want to cause a mass panic.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what that character's supposed to be. Is like we can't panic people just yet until we know what's happening.
Yeah, but as soon as he realizes what is happening, he reacts and responds right away.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I think we all agree we want large scale destruction. You know, these things falling over iconic buildings and much more violent petrification deaths, and I think we've figured out the science behind how that's going to actually work.
And we need some more political red tape. I feel there has to be some sort of government agency they have to fight against.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, or you got the
and
CDC,
it was in the first movie.
Or yeah, I mean, we've seen that kind of stuff in the Blob remake, and it's easily putting in that kind of red tape in there.
It's like in every disaster movie.
Yeah, that hampers what they're doing. So because they want to see what it does.
Yeah,
and
they either want to see what it does, or there's some politician who's like, well, we can't do that, like we cause that sort of destruction, I'll never get elected again. Like that sort of idiot has to occur at least once.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they had the governor off screen through the original, right, where they're saying don't blow up that dam until you get approval from the governor.
Yeah,
and Dave's like
dot.
I don't have time to waste waiting for
we don't have time.
Yeah, they blow up the dam, and then he finally gets the message saying, "Don't blow up that dam." ... unless you're sure.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I thought that was so cute. That delighted me.
I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
But there was one thing I actually had meant to mention as we were talking about the movie itself. But one of the things that made it work for the 50s movie is 50s movies were all about small towns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big city wasn't...
Well, it keeps them isolated.
It wasn't scary anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because people related to their small towns, and if something like that were to threaten their small town, it would be very, very scary.
Well, it's that other thing, like something other from outside is going to attack your community.
Yeah, but that's why we need to go big now, is because people don't think in terms of small towns anymore, right? Although lots of people still live in them, it's all about the big city, grand, massive... fear and panic.
And
right?
speaking to that too, what would you think, like how would you attack that whole idea of trying to get the word out, where we were discussing it earlier, where it sort of makes sense in this small town and why they had trouble?
And I think that's the inability to do that is what makes it the grand disaster that it is, because they can't communicate it. Right? They try, they get the messages out to the military and the police and in the path of this monolith.
And that's part of what makes the 50 movies work, is how hard that is to do. You do it in a modern society. When you take it to a big scale like that, you use it to perpetuate the panic and destruction, because now what's worse than panicked humans in mass quantities?
Yeah.
Right? So it becomes part of the story. It's not because they don't know, it's because they do.
Nice.
Right? And then you use Twitter and Facebook and
it's
all this.
There's no keeping a lid on it. In fact, maybe in the early days they think they can know there's a problem, but they might be able to stop it, and they don't tell them in time.
Yeah.
When they finally do, there's this mass panic and the exodus. It's okay. People are getting petrified from just sniffing in the debris, and then there's the others running, and they're driving into people and crushing people and all sorts of craziness, right? So it becomes part of your story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has to. I mean,
and it'll get to that sense of urgency we were looking for.
Yeah, it really will. Right. Especially if that first act is basically the first movie condensed into
just that one tiny portion of the movie.
25 minutes. Yeah. Right? Or you just speed up everything that happens.
Yeah.
Right.
You speed up the monoliths is what you do too.
You speed up the monoliths. You get rid of the science jargon that they wasted a lot of time talking about at the beginning of the movie. Like the first 15 minutes was Ben finding the rock.
Well, really, I mean, you really just do enough of that to convince the audience that they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And you really never have to do it again.
No, but I mean, like in this one, you could have them like struggling trying to find out what can fix it.
Yeah.
But just like a condensed sort of in conjunction with all this other exciting stuff happening. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like it's dragging.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Our core cast can be in LA trying to find the solution when the town is destroyed. Right? Working with whatever agency.
Yeah, and you have your minor bummer when they find out the town is already gone before they find out.
That's exactly right.
They're like, oh my God, we didn't stop it. And we can still stop it.
The most crucial change I think needs to happen is a slight retitling. I would just call it the Monoliths.
Yeah.
I would agree. It's because they're not monsters.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, that's a bit of misadvertising there.
Yeah, I think it's but the time frame when you're in 1950s movies, that's what you did.
Yeah, that was what was in vogue at the time, right? Giant monster movies. So I would just call it the Monoliths.
Agreed.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, but like such a simple idea, something that's growing and growing and growing, and you can't stop it.
Yeah, and God knows there's plenty of metaphors you can attach to that if you want to. Yeah.
And what's interesting is, like, I don't know, I've been to places where, like, you find somewhere that's, like, overgrown, like an old building that's overgrown with something and stuff like, roots growing out, just, like, destroying it.
Takes back everything that it, eventually.
Yeah.
And there's something unnatural.
We think we've built it forever.
So quickly. Yep. And, these, despite being fragile crystals, are, less fragile than the infrastructure we've created.
We don't realize how much of our structures are just keeping nature at bay.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you have something that is rapidly moving, like how do you keep that back? Keep it at base. So, neat idea. I guess my question to you guys, would you still use water as the catalyst? We're kind of operating as on a remake as that would be the catalyst.
Initially, I wasn't sure. Like I said, we talked about electricity and pollutants, but if we're using the same device to stop it, which is that saline water or the salt water, you need water as a catalyst. Right?
I don't think you necessarily need water as a catalyst, but I like the idea that because it's so prevalent, it's an omnipresent danger, which makes it more urgent. Whereas if it's lightning, that doesn't happen that often. You've got a lot more time. But if it's gonna rain, you can't stop it from raining.
Exactly. And if it starts in California, which is where I would keep it because of the desert, the fact that they've been undergoing a drought for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that they finally get rain actually represents a new terror.
That would be great.
There's an irony there that would just be it'd make me giddy.
It would be, like that would be super bummer. That would totally destroy everything. Yeah, we just want to kill people's souls. That's why I decided we wanted with this movie. We're so mean. We want to kill little children. We want to just have a bummer ending.
Well, if you want to fine point the severity of it, is you have a kid have the petrification problem,
Yeah.
Boy, there's nothing more urgent and terrifying of threatening children. So
that's true.
Yeah, they understood that in the 50s.
They did. I mean, they saved her. And we probably should in the remake, because they should find a cure for it, but that very last minute like they did.
But at the same time, when you're seeing the rapid petrification in the city and stuff, this is not something that picks and chooses.
No.
So,
but when you're saying like the peril of a child in the 50s is really dangerous, but the 50s also understood they can make children really scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
So imagine if you will, the heroes running through town as buildings are falling over and crystal tower monoliths are falling over, and they've got cloths over their faces, and other people are running, but they don't, and they're literally bursting with crystals as they pass these people.
And there's another threat from the crystals falling too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those crystals should be breaking into knife-like shards and impaling people.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's so many horrible things, and we're not horrible people, just for the record.
A station wagon just gets impaled full of a family.
Well, okay.
And a car seat just by the road. Okay, sorry, I went too far.
Holy. I might need to take a break from this remake.
Yeah, we're not bad people. We just feel that if you're going to
if you're going
to make something scary, make it terrifying.
Yeah, and when we're talking about, I think that's the thing, to make something scary, to base it on something I find the most scary things I can't control, or humans doing terrible things. So this one covers all of that.
Yeah, it really does. These things are far more of a threat than they were made out to be in the first movie, or the original movie, I should say. It's just because there are so many other elements to them that we could add to make it that much more shocking and terrifying.
Yeah, and we can address the issue of it's done, we've stopped them with this bit of saline, but it's going to rain again. What happens again?
Well, I think
it's going to be an ongoing struggle.
Some pseudoscience with that. Once those crystals have absorbed enough of it, they become inert. But
but when does that occur? Because they shatter and become new again.
Yeah, you get new ones, and
what about all the stones that haven't been affected by?
Yeah, we saw what a little shard in the original one in a sink did.
Yeah.
So if you don't get it all, it all starts all over again.
Which is what makes it a bummer ending. Is there's always there's always that doubt, even when you finally stopped it. You've got the mass destruction. The land has been literally laid to waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what an environmental theme, hey? If you don't clean it up completely, it will cause problems.
Yeah, and there's probably no cleaning up properly.
Nope.
It just takes one person to get out with a little shard on their clothing,
or in the sole of their boot.
Or some kid finds a little piece of stuff on a beach and takes it home.
First time they hit a puddle, and bam, there we go all over again.
Which could be really fun.
Yeah.
That would be great if it was stuck in the sole of the shoe. You hit a puddle, and then it just pops the guy over.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell?
We got to have some fun.
Yep.
Well, okay, this was a fun movie. I'm quite looking forward to a remake of this if it ever.
I was happily surprised by it.
Yeah, and I can see why they kind of were watching that final scene in They Live as well, and why that related to that movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The creeping menace.
Yeah, the creeping menace. So, what are your favorite 50s sci-fi movies? What would you guys like to see remade? You can tell us over at Twitter at Invasion Remake, Invasion of the Remake, over on Facebook, and of course Invasion of the Remake at gmail.com. And you can email us all your letters and praise and hate mail or whatever, and we might read it on the air. We never get any mail, that's why you've never heard any.
Yeah.
But
if it's bad, probably not.
You're obviously listening. I can see the numbers, but you're a quiet bunch. The quiet invasion.
Just like the monoliths, just creeping up on us.
That's right. So tell your friends about the podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, tell 5 friends, tell 10 friends, tell them to tell their friends, and so on and so on. That's the best way you can support the show. We're doing this free for you every week. Hour and a half, 2 hours of our lives, and that's just recording, and God knows I put in a lot of time in the editing side of things.
Yes.
just do that. We have no advertisers. We do this at a deficit, so help us support the podcast. Give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and Stitcher or whatever podcatcher you consume us on. Yay! And just tell everybody about us and how cool we are, and we'll keep making this for you every
If there's
week.
anything obscure, not even 50s movies that you think deserves a remake.
We're definitely open into other people's ideas. We're always looking at, I mean, God knows, as far as movies that have been remade, we have an endless supply of them. So tell us which ones you'd like to hear next on the show, and we might put it as a priority,
nice.
Depending on how valid we think your idea is.
Or if it's something we've never seen but should have.
Yeah.
Or we find we're intriguing. We need to find out what this is about.
And again, some movie that you maybe think had the nugget of a good idea.
Yeah.
Like the Monolith Monsters.
Like the Monolith Monster that might make a much better modern movie that's, a movie that might have got overlooked the first time that could do well now. A mistimed movie or something like that. Mm-hmm. Let us know what your thoughts on that are. And again, we might cover those on the show.
Yay.
So, yeah, that's all I got. Anybody else?
Oh, I think I'm done. Stick a fork in me.
All right.
I'm good.
Well, we make lunch of Sam. I'm Jason.
I'm Trish.
And I'm Sam. I'm Lunch.
And we're out of here.
Woohoo.